Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Basketball PH podcast. Enjoy the show.
What is up, mga paps? Welcome to the Fantasy Basketball PH, or Filipino brand of fantasy basketball. And finally, I'm back here with our very good friend for our weekly review. So I haven't really been active. I was I was really looking forward for our usual Filipino or Tagalog episode. But I guess it's another day for me and my nose to bleed. But it's going to be a fun one, of course, as usual. So we'll have our weekly review, and of course, if you have any questions, just let us know. Our comments are available at YouTube, Facebook, as well as Twitter. So we'll be reading that. And of course, since this is a weekly review, we have our very good friend, the mainstay in our show. Let's call in NBA Fantasy Bible himself, D-Mac.
Puppy Roy, how are you? Thanks for having me again.
Of course, of course. Feeling better and feeling available, I guess. That's one of the best adjectives I can think of. How about you, bro?
Yeah, me too. So last week I'd lost my voice. So for some, that's probably a great thing. But for trying to present a show, it's probably not the best idea. But yeah, great to be back on board.
Yeah, hopefully we get some steam, and we can, especially me not being available, I can get things going. But of course, on a weekly basis, DMAC here always keeps me company. And then without further ado, let's do our weekly. I guess we're on week 6 analysis. I'll give you the table, bro.
Yeah, so this is the schedule for week 6. It was a really busy week 5, but heading into week 6, hopefully you had enough victories to keep you really enthused for week 6. But yeah, just looking at it here, we can see that we've got 15 teams with 4 games, 12 teams with 3 games, and 3 teams with 2. So bear in mind, those that have Charlotte, Houston, and Toronto players, particularly with weekly changes leagues, keep that in mind when you are setting your lineups heading into tomorrow's games as well. So bear that in mind. Obviously, still play your better players, but if you have a borderline top 100 player from Charlotte, from Houston, and Toronto, you may be looking to sit them this week in weekly changes leagues. Now, of course, a lot of us play those daily changes leagues, so you still need to be mindful of those teams that have the lower games as well. But we'll go through the schedule shortly. But bear in mind we've got some high volume days. We've also got some low volume days as well. So even if you do have guys from the Hornets, the Rockets, and the Raptors, you can still definitely win your week this week. So we're here to set you up.
There you go. And then just to add teams to highlight, I guess, despite playing 3 games, at least on my end, would be let me see. Of course, you have here Los Angeles Lakers. I think they have a good matchup, getting those back-to-back games against San Antonio Spurs. So again, since I want Wemby on my on our team moving forward, I'm pretty sure, and I think everyone's already noticing that after a very hot couple of games start by the San Antonio Spurs, we're really I mean, Keldon Johnson is shooting like 4 out of 20 in the past game. So I'm pretty sure it's a good idea to stream some LA Lakers players. And then for the 4 game teams, I would love to have someone from the Utah Jazz and OKC Thunder, as well as the Phoenix Suns, just because of those quality games, which I guess DMAC will be also talking about in this slide.
Absolutely, yeah. So we're starting off the week with a couple of low volume days. So on Monday, we actually have 8 games. But we don't have any back-to-backs on the Monday, Tuesday. So bear that in mind. But on Monday, 8 games. Tuesday, we have 4. So They are good streaming days. Come Wednesday, we actually have 12 games on Wednesday. So you're probably not looking to stream that day. Thursday, we don't actually have any games. So just keep that in mind as well when you are streaming. But Monday and Tuesday, heavy streaming days, particularly if you have that streaming spot. And that is your strategy. And I do recommend that. So it's always nice to have that streaming spot. The Friday, we have another really high volume day with 14 games. Finishing up with Saturday with a very low volume day with 4 games. So keep that in mind. Puppy's got the slide up there. We've got the back-to-back. So Tuesday, Wednesday, we have Brooklyn, we have Denver, we have Detroit, Philly, and Sacramento. But when we do analyze the back-to-backs, bear in mind some of the guys that are at risk of potentially sitting. So we're still unsure. Just looking at Brooklyn and Denver, I guess Jamal Murray is currently in health and safety protocols. But even if he was fully healthy, there was a chance that he could have sat one of those two on Tuesday or Wednesday. So just keep that in mind as well. And we'll go through some nice pickups, but I know that we will mention Bones Highland later on and Bruce Brown. Detroit, I know that Cade Cunningham's out, and we'll go through pickups and injuries later on, but that's another back-to-back to be mindful of. Philly as well. Embiid has been playing most back-to-backs in recent times, but that's just another potential maintenance day. Just bear that in mind. I think he will play those back-to-backs, but you just never know. And finally, with Sacramento, they're on a 6-game winning streak. Who would have thought that at the start of the season? But they're really gelling nicely, and very surprisingly, they're looking really good. So much for tanking for Wemby this season for the Kings. But yeah, bear that in mind on the Tuesday, Wednesday back-to-back. No back-to-backs on the Thursday, Friday, but come Friday, Saturday, as we approach the weekend, that's where we get more of the Houston. So that's interesting that Houston do play on that Friday, Saturday with only a 2-day week. LA Lakers, that's another one to bear in mind. AD has been smashing it recently. In the last week, he's been the #1 player in fantasy sports. But just keep that in mind. He has a chance of sitting one of those 2 back-to-backs as well. So we've got guys like Austin Reeves, he's killing it at the moment, particularly in deeper leagues. He's a potential pickup as well later on in the week. Looking at Phoenix as well with that back-to-back, and there's no real rest candidates. I know CP3 is currently out. So I'm just trying to think, Puppy, can you think of any other potential risks of Phoenix sitting? Probably CP3 if he was fit and firing at the moment. But apart from that, I think there's no real risk there from Phoenix.
Yeah, I think there's no risk there. Possibly, I'm thinking I don't, if ever CP3 will be healthy, then I doubt he'll play on that back to back. Just in case he'll be healthy early the week.
Absolutely. And we know that Campaign's just smashing it at the moment. So keep rolling him out. We're not sure when CP3 is playing. He's questionable in the last few games. So you'd think he'd be getting closer and closer, but we all know he's quite the old man at the moment. So Phoenix are playing fairly well. They're playing quite well without him. So there's no real reason for them to rush him back as well. They need him fit and firing for the playoffs as well. So he may not return for that back-to-back as well. Utah, early in the season, we thought that there was a lot of guys there with high potential of sitting back-to-backs, even your Lowry Markkanens. But at this stage, Mike Conley is out. Utah guys are actually saying that he may not be out as long as we thought with the 2-week timeline initially given. But having said that, with this back-to-back, even if he returns after a couple of games, you would think that one of those 2 games he may sit if he does return from injury as well. So keep that one in mind. Let's keep an ear out for that, and we'll play it by ear. But yeah, Taylor Horton-Tucker and Colin Sexton as well, I think is a must roster player at this stage. But again, later on, we'll go through some nice pickups. And you've got there a Sunday, Monday back-to-back. So it's really important you finish the week off strongly, but also start week 7 in a really positive fashion as well. So Atlanta actually have a good schedule this week and moving into next week. So it's actually 5 games in 8 days for Atlanta. So bear that in mind as well, Papi.
Yeah, and then someone that I also would, I'm looking at our Sunday, Monday back to back. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'm just checking Minnesota, Indiana, Philly, Washington. Okay. I was looking for Portland if there's a Portland Blazer there because week 7 is a week that I guess Portland has an advantage, but we can undock. Let's just talk about that next week rather, because I thought that Portland is part of this back-to-back games. Again, like what DMAC mentioned, sometimes your team is just too good, and then maybe it's best to save your ad drops on the last day of the week, wherein it actually helps you out on the following week, which is week 7. And then before we move forward to some notable players that will be discussing, let's check our comment section. Papi Romnick Tandok, good evening, Paps. Thoughts on Yanis trade to so Yanis trade to Garland and Brook Lopez or Turner. So Dimac here is a Yanis owner, so I'll ask him first. But I'm not sure if is it like Garland plus Brook Lopez or straight up Yanis and Turner. I'm just unsure on that, or Brook Lopez or Turner. So Garland and Turner or Brook. Wow, Brook Lopez and Turner is being assumed like has a similar value here. But go ahead, D-Mac.
Yeah, I think if you've got Giannis, you're obviously punting free throws. He started off the season really strongly with his free throws, but that's dropped dramatically. And we all saw the footage earlier in the week in Philadelphia as well with the ladder gate. That was quite hilarious. But he's actually ranked 218th in 9-cat this season. But when you draft Giannis, you know you're punting free throws. So that takes it takes him into the top 5 with a punt free throw build. So having that in mind, you still also need to consider how many teams in this league. But for me, you still always take the better player with the punt in mind. So Giannis is always going to be that guy for me, assuming it's a standard 12-team league as well. So I wouldn't trade down for Garland and Brook Lopez or Turner as well, because you've got that free throw punt in mind. You've probably got other similar style players on your team as well. So unless you are in Roto, perhaps, where you're looking to build a really balanced team, I wouldn't be making that trade. But it would be interesting to know what his team construction is.
Yeah, definitely agree. I'm just like, if I was the other side, like for example, I have Garland or Turner, I would or Brook Lopez. I just would like to commend this trade because whoever this dude is really, recognizes selling high because Brook Lopez is really tearing it up. Turner as well. Then Garland also he had that 50 game like last week, right? So I guess again that just I would love to commend this GM who kind of like really thought of this trade because generally and on some level if we think that it sticks, it might be a good sell high attempt. But yeah, but then again, it's Giannis Antetokounmpo. Kent Tornila here says good evening, Paps, Papi, Mac, Kevin, Javeliana. Quentin Grimes thoughts, Paps. Tibbs loves him since last year and might be on the starting lineup of New York. I actually drafted him in our deep league, but apparently, given that my team sucks, so I had to really drop him eventually. And now he's gone. Someone from our league will definitely um, take those possible stats that Q Grimes will give. And I definitely I would agree that Tibbs loves him. I think he's that 3 and D guy that Tibbs wants. Initially, they kind of like thought of or preparing. They're kind of like preparing to start Q Grimes over Ivan Fournier. And then, given that the season hasn't started yet, we're thinking that hey, Ivan Fournier just had some decent run during the FIBA, so maybe not. And they need their his outside shooting. But then again, the fact that even without Q Grimes, even Fournier was already overtaken by Cam Reddish. So I can't promise that it will stick just because this happened with Cam Reddish out. So we have to really monitor that. But given that you're already looking at Q Grimes, I would assume this is a deep league. Then if I want to really, roll the dice, I would definitely try to check out Q Grimes. Unless there's like Shake Milton or some Tyus Jones in your FAs, then I'll look at Q Grimes. For now, let's just put a star on Q Grimes. I'm not yet, inclined to add him unless you're in a 30 deep league or 20 plus deep league. What do you think, D-Man?
I completely agree. I think someone to monitor. I think he was a sticking point with a potential trade with Donovan Mitchell, I believe, which
Yeah,
was very interesting.
imagine that.
Very interesting. So they must hold him in high esteem. So it's interesting that Cam Reddish has overtaken him, seeming that Quentin Grimes was held in such high esteem. And prior to last game, where Grimes got 32 minutes, he's really been struggling to get into the rotation at all. So, yeah, I wouldn't be rushing out to get him. Look, if Reddish does sit again tomorrow, because they're on a back-to-back as well, Grimes could be a quick pickup just in deeper leagues as well. But as Royce mentioned, there's probably some other better free agents on the wire at the moment.
Yeah, but that's someone that you really need to monitor. But again, the expectation there is just at least for now 3 and D. But I really love those dimes that he gave last game. Papi and entre negosyo for national building business community. Very, very nice to, see someone that is inclined in business joining our show. So, Paps, Turner, Bol, Clay Thompson, and Kevin Durant and Butler, first five for the season. Worth to keep. So, I'm kind of like confused on the question here, but worth to keep, yes. If ever you kind of like want to flip here, maybe I'm thinking if you could flip like Clay Thompson or Jimmy Butler for better players, just because Clay Thompson had a very good game last time, and then we all understand that Butler might he's a very is very known of really missing games. So if you could improve those two players, especially the reason why I'm kind of like down with Clay Thompson because we'll talk about this later or him later. Like for example, if you own Malik Beasley, you're killing what Clay Thompson gives you, right? Almost like on parallel, on a very, very good value. So given the name value of Clay Thompson, maybe you can flip him. But yeah, I would keep this five players, especially two ball in the house. He's there was a news or there was a post that he'll be sticking in the starting five, bro.
Yeah, he's super exciting. He's well, I was going to say Wemby 2.0, but he's really Wemby 1.0. He's come before Wemby, but similar, very, very similar game style as well. He's been remarkable this season, but I know Orlando have a lot of guys to come back into the lineup, but it would be great to see him get those high minutes. He's consistently getting around that 30-minute mark, which is great for Bol because he's always had that potential. But I think in previous teams, previous seasons, we just haven't seen him really try, to be honest. He's looked really average until this season. So, yeah, definitely worth keeping. I agree with you, Clay Thompson, selling high, particularly after his 10 three-pointers. I personally took offense to that because I lost in one of my leagues because of Clay Thompson going buck wild yesterday, which is crazy. Butler as well, I'd be looking to flip because we know that he's a first rounder on a per game basis. Having said that, he does miss a lot of games, and the Heat really need him to fire come playoffs. They do okay without him during the regular season. Yes, they could probably need him a little bit, but you know that he's going to miss anyway with little niggles here and there. So yeah, I'd be looking to flip Butler and Clay on name value. So completely agree with you.
There you go. Papi Mark, Ivalena again. Who to stream? Papi Embiid or Papi Roy? Definitely Papi Roy. You can't go wrong with Papi Roy. We miss your
First
podcast.
rounder.
Yeah,
First
I
rounder.
also miss doing our usual shows. I'm I'm I won't promise again because I keep breaking my promise because my boss is keeps breaking her promise as well in my day job. So apparently I've cleared all the things that I have to clear. So I was excited last week. But then again, when you kind of like do your job, wink wink, pretty well. So they gotta give you another thing to do. So but we'll find way, Papi Mark. And this comments will definitely push me to make time finally, at least starting week 6. I don't want to, I don't want to keep DMAC here thinking that we're not doing this on a consistent approach, right? So we'll definitely make DMAC feel at home when we do our podcast consistently, hopefully starting week 6. Okay. Papi Aaron Mayuga. Good PM, Papi Roy. I have Lori and Malik. For Yanis, oh, if you can get Yanis out of Lori and Malik, then you might end up winning that league. But if you can do that, yeah, it's definitely a win. But I really doubt that you can actually flip Lori and Malik for Yanis. Is there any way that you kind of like uh give Yanis for Lori and Malik, Dima?
Not in head to head, not at all, not at all. And even if you were somehow to get him, if there was a roto situation, then you just flip Giannis again for another high quality player in the first round as well. Um, so yeah, thinking about trading and whatnot, yeah, that's a great win if you can pull it off. I'd love to hear the results if it actually happens.
Yeah, come back to us, Papi Aaron. If you can pull that, I need to invite you in our in our podcast. You need to give us the tips how to get Yanis. We need to do a how to get Yanis one-on-one with Papi Aaron Mayuga. Okay. So before you clear our comment section, let's talk about some notable players or some notable situations per team or per player. First up, Jamorant. I guess in our 20 team league, I started with a couple of wins. I was happy with that, given I picked last. But it seems like the luck doesn't really favor me. So I thought Anthony Davis is the one who will be be injured first, but Jamorant. Imagine this, bro. I was super happy that hey, I think I remember I have a Tyus Jones in one of my leagues. So I was super happy to check which league is that. When I saw which league is that, it was our 20 team deep, and I own Jamorant. So that was a lackluster happiness.
Yeah,
But
that's a fortunate handcuff. You did well.
but I thought of really doing that when I chose Jamorant. I thought of this could happen. I didn't thought of this happening this early, but that's something that is kind of like expected, at least for me. So given that Jamorant is out, it seems like Tyus Jones should be like a no-brainer pickup here, right? But
Yeah.
Something that I would like to put in the discussion is the villain. I call him the villain because I don't know, people doesn't like him. I guess the villain, Dylan Brooks rather, is going to go Kobe in the Memphis right now. So what can you say, given that the two top stars is out for the Memphis Grizzlies? Is it the Dylan Brooks season?
Oh, if you're willing to, if you're punting field goals, absolutely. I know he had a really good game in the last game earlier today, which is outstanding. But there's a lot of mouths to feed at Memphis, even with the Bain and Jar sitting out at the moment. Not to mention old mate JJJ.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
but in
looking at
terms of
it,
Brooks, yeah, I just can't get behind it. Look, he's worth a grab at this stage in a 12-teamer. He's worth it. See what happens. But if you're punting field goals, great pickup.
speaking of JJJ, I was thinking he's going to really, you know, should he should be getting those usage and getting those stats whenever he's healthy. I just think it just so happened that he came back and then Ja went down, so he didn't have like that space to really be comfortable to play. But he seems healthy, so I guess whoever holds JJJ, he could be that sneaky steal of the draft this season, especially if you got him like what round 10 sometimes or further. So he's going to really step up. But watch out for those games that he won't be playing. I think I'm having a feeling that DMAC will be talking about this guy next. So I'm gonna open it up for John Conchar. What can you say about John Conchar?
Yeah, John Conchar's been really good. He's sneaky for a guard. He's picking up so many rebounds, and since Desmond Bain has also gone out, now Jar, some high usage guys have been out. John Conchar's looked really impressive. So just in the last week, I'm just trying to get his stats up, but he's easily in the top 100. So for me, he's a must roster. I know Memphis only have 3 games this week, but I'd still be holding on to him. Even if you picked him up for a stream in the last game, I'd be looking to hold on to him as well as Tyus Jones as well. I think he's got great potential. His shooting is elite as well. We've seen flashes in the past, and there's a lot of great shooters on this Memphis team, but he really stands out as not just being a shooter, but he's able to contribute in other areas as well. So threes, rebounds, and steals. Gives you decent percentages as well from field goal and the free throw line. So really solid all-round player. So for me, it's an easy pickup.
Yeah, and also if you're in deep leagues, I would also kind of like stream those Brandon Clark or Santi Aldamas because they'll definitely have games wherein they shine, especially those games without Triple J. And also it loops in. It kind of like flows with the storyline wherein Dylan Brooks breaks his shots. So players that rebounds will rebound well. Like for example, John Conchar. We also have the Aquaman getting a lot of boards. So expect that to happen, given that we have Dylan Brooks shooting a lot of or getting a lot of shots. And then given that now they have a pass first guard with Tyus Jones, I'm expecting those pick and roll players to also excel. I mentioned Aquaman, so I'm expecting some uptick with him. Santi Aldama, and then watch out for Jake Laravia for deeper leagues because I am pretty sure the Memphis Grizzlies will try to explore those their bench given that their top 2 stars, top 2 usage getters will be out for a couple of weeks hopefully, and then they only have black hole in Dylan Brooks.
Right. And just as some context with John Conchar, I know it's only been a week, small sample size, but in 3 games, he's the 17th ranked player in 9K, which is unbelievable. For the season, even though guys have only really just realized he's been around, he's been a really solid player, ranked 83rd for the entire season, so across 16 games. So that's remarkable. So he's an easy pickup. So stop what you're doing now, go and pick him up, then come back and join us again.
Definitely, definitely. I remember I was talking to my good friend Papi KP from KPTV about John Conchar because I told him despite like for example Santi Aldama and then who else were kind of like being talked about early the season, Jake Laravia. The guy, the dude that shoots a lot of threes from Philly, Zaire Williams. I guess those are the players that was talked about preseason, right? But I was talking to him that it's going to be John Conchar at some point because John Conchar was already being used last year on that role. So I was thinking for him to get that role despite a successful run last year, it means that their coach really trusts him. So over those other players, I was thinking in deeper leagues, he definitely have his time to shine. Okay, next up, another 2 guards that unfortunately had injuries. We have here Tyrese Maxey and Cade Cunningham. Let's talk about Tyrese Maxey first. It's unfortunate that when James Harden got injured, Tyrese Maxey really kind of like justified his value or the hype in the past preseason. But now he's already injured. He's also injured as well. So Shake Milton already showed what he can do in the past game. My question now, here for you, DMAC. This is in parallel with Cade, which we're gonna talk about later. Which player would you prioritize adding? Will it be Shake Milton or will it be Killian Hayes?
That's a good question. We've seen Milton have opportunities in the past in previous seasons, and he hasn't taken those opportunities, which has been unfortunate. we've seen him with flashes of brilliance as well, but then he's gone quiet in other games as well. Killian Hayes, there's always been talk of him being one of the most disappointing players. He was an early draft pick as well for Detroit, and he hasn't shown a great deal. But his stat set is really unique in that he can provide those defensive stats that Shake Milton can't provide. So it really depends on what you need in your team build. I like consistency and I like a little bit of safety, so I'd probably lean towards Milton. But if you wanted a little bit more high reward or high risk, high reward, you could go Killian Hayes as well. And we're unsure of how long Cade's going to be sidelined. It does sound quite serious as well. So hopefully it's not season ending for Cade Cunningham, because he was, as we're all aware, he was taken really high in drafts this season.
Yeah.
Sometimes in the second round, usually in the third or fourth. So I know people put a lot of investment into him this season. So hopefully he does come back. Maxi isn't going to be sidelined as long as Cade, I don't think. But I still would lean on the safety of Milton. Having said that, there's more guys that can fill in at Philly as well, I think. So we've seen Tobias Harris miss at Philly as well. D'Anthony Melton as well can play that role as a guard. Very different skill set, but he'll be picking up more of those minutes as well. But I like Milton. I like Milton for the safety. But again, they're not, for me, not must roster when you compare them to someone like a John Concha or a Tyus Jones, but they're still a very solid grab.
Yeah, there you go. And then the clue is from the name itself. He is called Shake Milton, so expect some shaky games from Shake Milton for
like
sure.
that. I like it.
He actually is very well known to be a very decent scorer. But again, if in depending on on what you need, but generally in nine cats, getting those peripheral stats will definitely help. That's the reason why I thought of really asking DMAC here. What if to pair it with Killian Hayes? Because Killian Hayes, on the other hand, gives you dimes, give you defensive stats. So it's going to be an intriguing, choice. But definitely, either ways, I'm pretty sure at least in the next 3 weeks minimum, they'll definitely give us a value. Especially earlier, we talked about Joel Embiid. If ever Joel Embiid miss games, which of course we kind of like doubt, they really need some wins, and I think he's definitely healthy. I'm pretty sure Shake Milton will go Dylan Brooks with the Philadelphia 76ers. But D-Mac already mentioned the Anthony Melton. I'm super excited with the Anthony Melton. Tobias Harris. This is why we draft Tobias Harris, because Tobias Harris lead this season, like way compared to last season. But I was thinking he is still one of the safest pick, not enticing, safe in some sense that he kind of like is gives you a lot of stats, nothing big in specific category, but he can give you almost all stats without hurting you. Plus, he's kind of like, if you believe in handcuffs, he is a handcuff for Joel Embiid. He is a handcuff for James Harden, him and Tyrese Maxey. And then Tyrese Maxey went down. So now it's time for Tobias Harris to actually shine. So if you own Tobias Harris, maybe you let him play once he comes back. You let him play for a good solid 1.5 weeks, and then you sell. I guess that's the area we try to sell Tobias Harris, right? Um, Detroit
If
Pistons,
you,
bro. Yeah, go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, just with Tobias Harris, he's actually ranked 29th on the season. So if you know that other people are looking at ranks, you could actually sell him. I know he's missed the last game. He's questionable for the next game, but you could just sell him just because someone looks at ranks. And 29th, for someone who thought that he would be sitting out well outside the top 50 this season, his steal rate at the moment is probably a little bit too high. That's got room for regression there. His percentages are actually not as good as normal. We could see that come up. So yeah, you could still see him being a top 50 player, but like you said, I'd be looking to sell him after a week or so of solid play in the absence of some key players for Philadelphia.
Agree. Um, Detroit Pistons, bro. So now Cade is down. Personally, I already tweeted this out. It's going to be Jaden Ivey. I'm excited for a Jaden Ivey Rookie of the Year run. But I am also thinking that let's hold our horses because we all know their coach, and then we've already seen Alec Burks getting minutes. Now we have a healthy Marvin Bagley, and then there's a Kojo sighting. Wow, it's like seeing a dinosaur. So with that said, are you confident with the Detroit Pistons letting their two young guns, Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey, to get as much opportunity as they can?
We all know that they should play Jalen Duren, but Marvin Bagley's back in the lineup, and they paid him huge extension, so they're going to play him, and he's now starting at center. Isaiah Stewart's out at the moment; he is injured, but he was playing more of the power forward role. Now he's got some range to his game as well. So Marvin Bagley's playing over Jalen Duren. The last couple of games have been interesting just because Bagley has started, but he's been in early foul trouble. So Duren's picked up some of those minutes, and he's played really well. And you can see that he's got the future at the Pistons over Bagley. But I think maybe they just need to realize that they paid for a guy that they didn't actually need in a rebuilding team. It didn't make sense with the trajectory of this team. So it'll be interesting. I don't like Bagley's stat set. I like Duren's stat set. We all know that he can pick up good rebounds, good field goal percentage, and good blocks, which we often talk about. Statistical scarcity is something that is very important and something to pay attention to. So I like Duren, but Ivy's got the clear path now. He's going to get most of the usage on this team until Cade comes back. So hopefully you load it up on Jaden Ivey. Some people even picked him up off the waiver wire. He went undrafted in a couple of leagues that I played in. So they're looking pretty good at the moment. And I don't mind your shout for Rookie of the Year either. He's got some stiff competition, but who knows what can happen while Cade is out.
Yeah, and then especially the Detroit kind of like missed that chance to get a Rookie of the Year last year. Maybe they have a chance again this year, but that is with the expense of Cade being out. But hopefully not, because I have several Cade Cunningham in my leagues, and I'm also one of those GMs who drafted him like late second round in one of my deep leagues. I guess that's a 20 team league as well. So imagine that, me thinking that, hey, what I'm gonna go young guns because they'll be healthier, and then in just within 6 weeks, I have Desmond Bain and Cade Cunningham in my IL. Imagine that. What are the odds? Anyways, some oldies but goodies. Mike Conley got injured, and this is a non-contact injury yesterday. Um, this is my question. Are you confident, DMAC, that this is going to be the opportunity for Sexton to shine? Because when I watch the game, and then even in the past, in terms of the playmaking chores, I already kind of like prematurely tweeted its way back to watch out for THT, because he's been doing those playmaking role whenever Conley is not available. So I'm looking at and then we have Kelly Olynyk, who can also facilitate, right? So with that said, is this Sexton time?
I think Sexton's worth rostering. We've seen him at Cleveland when he was the number one in front of Garland. He was the primary usage guy on that team, but he wasn't a great facilitator. And I see the same sort of thing. He'll pick up his minutes, he'll pick up some usage as well. But THT actually started when Mike Conley came off. So THT for me is a better facilitator. He's got a lot of facets to his game. I don't think he's the better all-round player, because we know that Sexton can get hot, and if you need shooting, if you need scoring, he's a great pickup if he's not already rostered. I think he's worthy of a roster spot. THT, I'm still undecided about. I don't think he's a hot pickup in a 12-team league, but definitely in deeper leagues, and something to just keep an eye on. But having said that, I don't think Conley's out for a great deal of time. Yes, he's old, and they did say that at a minimum it would be 2 weeks, but it's now come out today that it may actually be a lot shorter than that. So potentially only 3 games missing, maybe a week. He may have a week off. particularly with that back-to-back that we spoke about earlier as well. So THT could be a pickup in deeper leagues. Sexton's probably already rostered in most of your leagues, but I don't know if they'll take off. And we already are aware of some high usage guys at Utah that have been dominating this season. So Markkanen, Clarkson, they're going to keep doing what they've been doing all season.
And on top of that, we have Malik Beasley. So
Absolutely.
Malik Beasley has been shooting the lights off. If you own Malik Beasley in 20 team or up to 30 team league, you're kind of like killing your opponent every week with his snipes. He's winning you one category on his own. So that's how valuable Malik Beasley has been as a sniper in the past week. Do you think the Utah Jazz sticks together, Dima? Is this the direction that Danny H wants? Like winning, surprisingly winning?
No, not based on the moves that he made pre-season, but I think they're going to go with it. There seems to be a great synergy and chemistry on this team. They've still got a nice core of young players and some really nice veterans as well. And Markkanen is just playing out of his skin. I think he's finally being utilised as his skill set should be. We've seen him with the Finnish national team really dominate as well. And I think that's carried over into this season with Utah. And I think he's finally learned how to embrace his role and how to actually shoot over guys that are smaller than him as well. It's a really nice change. It's great for those that picked him up in 7th, 8th, sometimes the 9th round as well. So he's returning top 40 value at the moment, probably in the top 30. He's been wonderful. I'm not sure about the direction of Utah. It's still quite early, but they are looking so impressive at the moment, and there's a lot of hype in Utah around this team as well. And it's almost a case of good riddance, getting rid of Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. But I'm not sure if it's sustainable, but we shall see. It'll be very fun to watch.
For sure. The reason why I asked that because I'm pretty sure there are several GMs who are kind of like holding those Walker Kesslers and THTs, hoping that hey, I hope after like what maybe week 10 or earlier, Utah Jazz turns around and then hey, we're gonna tank for Wemby. So let's wait. But something that Dima mentioned that I love is we all like to see very good basketball, and then the Utah Jazz is playing one. So let's just support the Utah Jazz. Finally, they kind of like surprisingly got a group of guys who is playing together well to the point that they've actually defeated several contenders already. It's still early, but let's just enjoy the ride. On the other hand, the Miami Heat in the past few games almost have what 7 players to play in the last game, right? So Jimmy Butler is expected to sit at least 3 more games, as far as I remember. So with that said, couple of names coming on my head. Kyle Lowry, I kind of like thought of really creating a post earlier or yesterday, I guess, or Friday, talking about Kyle Lowry, talking about encouraging everyone to sell Kyle Lowry because he is out, Jimmy Butler is out. He played 50 minutes. I really doubt that's gonna stick.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was 2 games ago where he got that triple-double, and it was a huge triple-double as well, when they only had 7 guys. Bam was missing, Butler was missing, Hero is still missing. So absolutely time to sell high on Lowry. He's ranked 70th on the season. We know that he's old. He's probably going to slow down as the season wears on, particularly with guys returning to the team. So now is the time to sell high on Kyle Lowry. Having said that, if you are in dire need of assists, and you probably did pick him up around that pick 100 mark, he's worth sticking with because it is very tough to find assists on the waiver wire. But if you can get a younger guy that does also provide you with assists, I would make that switch very quickly.
Would you trade Kyle Lowry? Is it smart to trade Kyle Lowry for Bones Island? Or would you stick with Kyle Lowry?
I would stick with Lowry. I'd stick with Lowry. I think Bones Highland has looked really good recently, but we haven't had Jamal Murray. We haven't had Nikola Jokic. So I think he's just been the man while these guys have been sitting out. Michael Porter Jr.'s he hasn't been shooting as well since Jokic has been missing as well. So Highland has been sort of the go-to guy, even coming off the bench behind Bruce Brown. So I would still stick with Kyle Lowry in that trade, but you could, if you were a Highland owner, you could potentially make that trade and get Kyle Lowry.
There you go. Another player from the Miami Heat before we move forward that I would like to mention, Max Strus, bro. Whoever picked up, or if you drafted Max Strus like one of your last pick, is definitely giving us solid value. So big shout out to Max Strus because we shouted out Laurie Markkinen earlier. I think for the Miami Heat, on their end, Max Strus is the player for me that is kind of like a revelation for this season.
Absolutely. We've seen it in previous years as well. When a couple of guys have sat out, even when Jimmy Butler sat out, he stepped up. Gabe Vincent stepped up, but Vincent's also been a little bit injured this season as well. So definitely Strus in the absence of Tyler Hero and Jimmy Butler primarily, but even Bam missed a couple of games.
Agree. Next up, we kind of like someone talk about this. Let's talk about the Valley, the Phoenix Suns. It seems like it's it's campaign's team whenever you see the box score, right? There's only one game wherein Devin Booker really exploded, but most of the time it was campaign. Um, Question for me before we talk about the Devin Bookers and the Corey Griggs of the Phoenix Suns. Question for me is, how do you value camping? Is this something do you think will stick until in the long run, at least end of the season, or is it just because of CP3 being out?
It's just because CP3 is out. And he's been a wonderful substitute for CP3, but when CP3 was fully fit and firing, campaign definitely wasn't worthy of a standard league roster spot. Great player, and it's interesting how far he's come in the years where pretty sure he was waived as well. He wasn't seen to be good enough for NBA, but he's made a really nice career since coming to Phoenix as well. But going back to your question, I don't think he's worthy of a roster spot once CP3 is back. But as soon as you see that CP3 goes down, because again, he is old, you pick him up because it's campaign season or it's the campaign, as you would. He's been awesome, top 50 player in the last couple of weeks. So you can't go wrong with that pickup.
Yeah, and for me, if you're in what around 16 team deep leagues, I won't drop campaign even when CP3 comes healthy. You wait, you just observe what's gonna happen because I was thinking that the moment CP3 comes in, remember when CP3 was available, campaign isn't 100% healthy. I remember him being injured early this season. So given that Camp Johnson is out, maybe some of those usage coming from Torrey Gray, which is not known to really, be a scorer. Maybe that gives value to campaign, giving you what, like maybe at least 12 points, 4 assists, a steal, and 2 snipes. So I think that stat line is still rosterable. And then you have possibly a chance to get the same value that we are getting right now whenever CP3 sits during back to back or knock on the wood if he gets hurt. Because, CP3 is similar to Laurie, is kind of like old, and we're similar to LeBron as well in parallel. We're waiting for this solid, our idols to really, unfortunately, check when will be the season that they go slow. Because it's been a while since that happened. So maybe if you own campaign, maybe that's kind of like one of the reasons why you won't drop him easily. But if you're in 10 deep, 10 team league or 12 team league, I would agree that it's definitely a drop the moment that CP3 is available.
But if you
I
can
mentioned,
convince someone that, if you can convince another manager that CP3 is old and he won't be coming back anytime soon, or he'll be regularly injured, it's a great time to sell high. The last 7 games, like I said, he's been a top 50 player. So see if you can make that transaction as well.
yeah, do that. Definitely do that. DeAndre Ayton, bro, he's kind of like playing better. He's getting a lot of dimes for I mean, it was surprised of that specific stat. Um, do you think this is something that continues? Because I remember when DeAndre Ayton was drafted, he seemed to be that big man that can give you easily daily double double. He's more of a scorer compared to other big men. He has a potential to get blocks, but I'm still wondering why he can't do that given his size. Maybe the Phoenix Suns knows it because they kind of like acquired Bismack Buyombo. But yeah, what can you say about the Andre Ayton? Because I've been seeing a lot of the Andre Ayton trades in several of my leagues being involved. So would love to hear your thoughts about the Andre Ayton's value.
He's definitely trending in the right direction. It's interesting because he started out the season with a lot of usage, actually, which didn't result in him getting fantasy value. It's actually the other way around. In the last few games, he's actually gone back to having a really low usage, but he's been more efficient. He shot the ball a little bit better. Not in the last game, but the previous game, he actually got 3 blocks, which is a rarity for him. And again, that's strange for a guy with such size as well. So you think that he is trending in the right direction. Perhaps when CP3 comes back, then things will be structured a lot more nicely for him. But yeah, it's been a weird one. I was actually offered Aiton for my Lowry, and in hindsight, maybe I could probably pull
Yeah.
that trade still at the moment. But it's an interesting one. People are quite wary. We were warned before the season started. Aiton and the fit on the Suns was a little bit strange. The chemistry was a little bit weird. He hadn't spoken to the coach since the playoffs, which I found quite strange as well. So we're all warned. So hopefully you didn't draft him too high. But he is trending in the right direction. So if you do have him, hold on. And if you don't, I'd be looking to acquire him for someone around that 80, 90 mark at the moment in terms of rankings, because he is trending pretty quickly.
And if you think about it, the moment CP3 comes back, and now he is in a better shape, in a better mindset, maybe it works better for him because he'll be paired with probably at least the best aside from Luca in this season, and maybe I don't know, Fox, I guess, one of the best guards to be paired with in that pick and roll system. So maybe there's an uptick there. But on the other hand, just to have a parallel discussion with Devin Booker, it also impacts Devin Booker's value because whenever CP3 is available, unfortunately, it's a downward trend for Devin Booker just because of those dimes. But Devin Booker's value is always coming from the efficiency and that scoring. But do you think Devin Booker can really push his value this season with a declining CP3?
Yeah, I think he can. I know in dynasty circles he's seen as a first round chip. So I think with that in mind, campaign's not taking away the dimes that CP3 is. I think Booker does have that potential to become a first round player in years to come once CP3 does retire or moves on from the Suns. Yeah, we know that Booker's got it in him. He's looked really impressive in the last couple of weeks while CP3 has been out. He's been a first rounder, top 10 guy in the last fortnight as well. So we know he's got it in him. Add that to the efficient shooting as well, the elite points, decent rebounds as well. And actually he's still about the same as last season as well. So he's just a great consistent player. I think he will be a probably top 30 player, top 20 player, perhaps by the end of the season. But yeah, more so if CP3 does miss more games.
Okay. So we talk about stars. Let's talk about some glue guys here. Larry Nance. So it's been a while since we see solid games from Larry Nance just because of his injuries in the past seasons. But we all know what he can do. But given that we all know that, I guess the question here is, what's up with Jonas Valanciunas' minutes versus Larry Nance. What can you say about that situation?
Yeah, they're pretty much splitting those minutes, which is really interesting. And Nance has outplayed him. He's finished games as well, which is really interesting. Jonas was a beast last season. He started off really well this season. But since Nance has come into the lineup and started playing 20 plus minutes, approaching the 30-minute mark, he's been the preferred player. So you still hold Jonas Valanciunas. He's not a drop. But Nance is definitely a pickup if he's not already rostered. Make sure he is rostered. But yeah, we know his fantasy stat set is quite unique. Less valuable in a points system, in a points league, but in terms of category leagues, which most of us play, he's good for steals. He's good for great field goal percentage. His efficiency and his true shooting is elite as well this season. So I think he's been super valuable for what the Pelicans are trying to achieve this season. So he has been that glue guy, as you've put it. So I don't see his minutes being reduced anytime soon. So, but just bear in mind that Valanciunas is not a drop. Um, but it is interesting to see where it goes from this point on. But who knows? Nance, as he's accustomed to, he could just be injured any day now and miss a big chunk of the season. So I would not be dropping Jonas Valanciunas.
Yeah, and then for those who are actually wondering why is it that Larry Nance plays better or gets more minutes whenever Zion is available versus when Zion is out, Jonas Valanciunas is getting more minutes. So the reason why it happens is, of course, New Orleans Pelicans prioritize Zion, right? So whenever Zion plays, they really need some help in the front court defense, and then unfortunately, Jonas Valanciunas can do that. That's also the reason why they are also kind of like sticking with Jackson Hayes even before, because that's what Nance and Hayes brings, that front court defense to be complementary with Zion's production and lack of defense rather. And then on the other hand, whenever he's not available, then they need some some muscle and then some scoring in the front court, right? So that's the time Valanciunas shines. So for me, that's what I see on the rotation. But like what Dimac said, looking at it right now, New Orleans Pelicans is a black horse or dark horse for me. They're playing well. They're a very good team. They're a very deep team. They know their role. And with that said, given that it's a system team, I would also assume that knock on the wood, as long as Nancy's healthy, is part of the rotation. And then unfortunately, to those GMs who kind of like drafted Jonas Valanciunas super early, it won't, unless again knock on the wood, Zion Williamson gets injured, he might not get that value that you're expecting him to provide in comparison to what he actually showed us last season. Um, Talking about the OKC Thunder, bro. I love J Dub just because for me he I don't think the handcuff for SGA, if ever he kind of like has tanking sickness late this season, I don't think it's Ludor to his the handcuff. Maybe Giddy is a parallel handcuff. But for me, in terms of usage or value wise, I'm looking at Trayman and J Dub to really blossom, if ever. Hopefully not. SGA sits down. So given that that's kind of like the value that we're expecting from these two, and now even with SGA, they're already providing stats. I would assume that, I guess, J Dub is only owned what? Last time I checked, 18% in Yahoo. I would really encourage everyone to, add Jalen Williams, uh, even in standard leagues. I really like the stat set that he provides. I do understand that those games are the games where Pokusevski is out, Trayman is out, so definitely it will kind of like fall down when those players comes back. But I still think that compared to the Tari Easons or the Okongus that we're sticking, I think given that it's OKC Thunder, he could be the last player on the bench on the standard league, and you still get something from him despite OKC being healthy. Or do you kind of like agree with that, D-Mac, or you
Yeah, I
think
agree.
it's just a fluke?
Yeah, I think it's not a fluke. He's played really solid minutes recently for OKC, even when they've been fully healthy. And just recently, he has popped off as well. Couple of absences for OKC, and as you said, there is that potential that SGA does sit more games throughout the season, or potentially even does get shut down. I don't think I don't really buy into the whole shutdown theory because he didn't get shut down at the end of last season as well,
Yeah.
but he may sit more games as we approach the end of the season. So that means Jalen Williams is a pickup for me. Yeah, like you said, he's providing value right now. So it is worth because he is worth rostering because he will pop off. And we've seen him pop off on occasion. He's still young, obviously, he's a rookie. So he's going to be inconsistent anyway. Not to mention the unpredictable nature of the rotations on the OKC. And that's not a blight on Mark Dagnall. He's a great coach. You've probably noticed, unless you're SGA and sometimes even Giddy has been sat down, if he's not playing well, they're going to get guys in who are playing well, regardless of your reputation. So OKC are really exciting. They're going to be a top force in years to come. But I still think Jalen Williams is a guy to pick up right now in standard leagues.
And then D-Mac already mentioned earlier that categorical scarcity, right? And in a forward position, J-Dub is actually giving us solid dimes, very decent dimes that could help you, win that category, or at least if you kind of like have Hardens or the who else, the Tyrese Maxis, then you have another source of assist for your team.
That's right.
Next up, we this is he was mentioned earlier already. Bones Highland. Big props to Bones Highland stepping up while the main man Nikola Jokic, and then recently Jamal Murray is out. Um, I think similar to similar to J Dub, I think I would still hold him in 16 deep or even in 14 deep, even when Jokic and Jamal Murray comes back. Uh, but a question that I would ask D-Mac here is, who would you rather stick with, Bones Highland or Bruce Brown?
Mm. That's a great question. Bruce Brown was still providing value when they had a full complement, but I do like the upside of Bones Highland, and he does have that electrifying play about him. He's still a young player. He's still learning the game. Bruce Brown is fine. He's safe, but I like the upside of Bones Highland. So give me Bones. Give me a piece of bone.
There you go. I would also pick Bones because we haven't really had those run wherein maybe MPJ or Jamal Murray sits. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. But that's an additional motivation to really stick with Bones time. Speaking of sticking with a pogo stick, we have here Ball Ball. Is there still a question that Ball Ball should be owned in every league?
No, he's got to be owned in every league, 100%. Particularly at the moment, while Orlando still have a few guys out, as we mentioned earlier, has to be rostered. Again, categorical scarcity. Look at those 2.0 blocks per game. You don't find that on the waiver as well. And not just that, he's providing you with good points, extremely good shooting as well. 62% from the field, 83% from the line. That's elite. So stick with him. And even when guys do return, as we alluded to earlier, I still think he'll be rosterable. So at the moment, keep rolling with him. Tremendous player.
If you own Ball Ball, bro,
Mm.
at what cost would you trade him to, for example, under GM?
Well, he's in the top 50 at the moment, and he's had some fortune with guys out of the lineup as well. I'd be comfortable still trading him for a guy probably in the top 70 at the moment. But again, he's still finding his feet at NBA level. He's been in the system for a while, but he's still a young player and he hasn't played consistent minutes. So he could get better provided all the other guys remain out for a while. Paolo Banchero will come back soon, But that didn't seem to impact him too much when Banchero was in the lineup. But there's still Jonathan Isaac still to come at some stage as well. So don't forget about him. Plus Cole Anthony, I know very different positions, but you think of that usage as well. Cole Anthony, Markel Fultz as well. So very different players, but there's still there's only so many minutes and so many players that you can play as well. So keep that in mind. If you can sell him for a top 50 player, I'd do it right now. But if you can't get that, keep rolling with him because he's playing tremendously well.
Would you trade him for? I'm thinking. Would you trade him for Klay Thompson?
Give me Bol just because what Klay can provide you, like you said, a Malik Beasley and other guys popping off with 3-pointers, and you can get those points. And not every day you score 40 plus, and he hasn't done that. Klay is well outside the top 100. He's, I think, ranked 140th on the season, plus he does sit the occasional games. So in terms of totals, he's probably going to be outside the top 100 by the end of the season. Give me Bol. I would prefer Bol.
Okay, so at least we kind of like know the range on the what you need to trade for a ball to be part of your team. A couple more slides here. Yeah.
I'll take that question for you. Well, would you rather have Bol or would you rather have Devin Vassell, knowing that your Spurs will probably look to tank later in the season if they're not already, sit Vassell down a fair bit? Would you rather Vassell or double Bol?
To be honest, I'm sticking with my storyline. I'm going with double balls here. I'm going with 2 ball. And then I just think my San Antonio Spurs will go all in with Wemby. Unfortunately, I have a lot of like not a lot, like I guess 2 or 3 leagues with Devin Vassell, and then I have 2 or 3 leagues with Jakob Pertel. Thing about Jakob Pertel is if he gets traded, he'll definitely still get minutes, so he's kind of like safer. But the Keldons and Devin Vassell, they will definitely rest from time to time. That's what I'm assuming. Speaking of rest, these 2 players, well-known players, came back from their rests. So we have Gordon Hayward, which is already being talked about to be, kind of like possibly part of some trades. And then we have Kawhi Leonard. Um, First off, with Gordon Hayward, how do you value him? Do you think, how about ball for Gordon Hayward? Do you still stick with
Still stick with Bol? Yeah, that's an easy one. Yep.
So if
just
that's
because
the case,
you're looking at Gordon Hayward, and I know he's a good source of points, but he's done that while LaMelo Ball's been out as well. And Hayward's still outside the top 150, and he's been unusually bad from the free throw line this season at 76.7%, which is a lot lower than what he normally provides us with. Plus, his turnovers have been unusually high as well for a guy of his quality. So for a guy outside the top 150 versus Bol inside the top 50, give me Bol every day of the week. Plus, LaMelo to come back is just going to further reduce his role on this young Hornets team.
So do you think, how about Gordon Hayward for Jaden Ivey?
Give me Ivy as well, particularly if Cade Cunningham's status is unknown. We don't really know when he's coming back. Ivy for sure.
There you go. Because I've also seen several in several of my leagues, Gordon Hayward being traded. So at least everyone could check out our valuation with Gordon Hayward. Kawhi, on the other hand, is this a good direction? Him playing? I guess definitely, right? But I mean, what could we expect from Kawhi Leonard?
Not a great deal. He's been a huge disappointment. I think we saw him go in second round in some drafts, easily in third round. So he's not giving you anywhere near that value, particularly in a totals standpoint. I think they're getting him primed for playoffs, which is fine, but it doesn't help us in terms of fantasy managers either. It is a good sign that he is slowly being reintegrated into the lineup, which is great to see. But we already knew that the Clippers were extremely deep to start with, so they don't necessarily need to play him many minutes. We've seen him play around that 20-minute mark in the few games that he has played. They don't need to play him anymore and just get him fit and firing for when it actually counts in the playoffs, the real life playoffs. So it is very disappointing. If he can string together a few games of high quality, particularly while guys such as maybe Paul George does sit a couple of games and the Kawhi is the go-to guy. If he can string together a few games, if you can use that name value plus the good form, I'll be looking to get off him as soon as possible, which is hard to say because I know that when we first started our journey together, Roy, I was taking Kawhi above PG. So that's fallen very, very flat.
I guess one of the interesting questions that I can ask you again, for with regards to Kawhi, and the Los Angeles Clippers, aside from Kawhi and Paul George, and maybe aside from Zubac because he's the lone center there, who do you trust to own from the Los Angeles Clippers?
Yeah, I like Marcus Morris. I think he's providing very solid value, particularly while Kawhi Leonard's been sitting. Really good source of points, threes, rebounds, good efficiency. So I think Marcus Morris is definitely worth rostering, even in a 10-teamer, but particularly in a 12 and deeper. So I can trust him. Norman Powell has had his flashes, and I've seen him come on and off of rosters in 12-teamers. I like him. He's a great shooter. He's a good player, but like we said, it's a really deep roster that the Clippers have. If you think that Kawhi may miss even more games down the track, Paul George will miss more games. Norman could be worth rostering, but again, he's not a must roster in my eyes.
Yeah, there you go. Because in terms of fantasy, Los Angeles Clippers is one of the teams that I thought that it's really hard to own anyone. Maybe Zubac is the best player. That if I wanted to own a Clipper, that's going to be Zubac. That's the lone player that if he'll be my third center in my team, I'll definitely be happy. But other than that, I'm not super excited with the any LA Clippers players. Terrence Mann showed some glimpses, but again, it's for super deeply.
And not to mention John Wall that got 10 plus assists in less than a quarter, which again, it was in one of my leagues against me. So that's always fun that happens to me. Yes.
Someone to watch though, bro. Just to add, I'm pretty sure he is currently available to all leagues right now. Rocco. At some point, I'm kind of like semi confident with this because of how Rocco plays and how Clippers plays. At some point, Rocco will kind of like surprise us with a very very good game, and then will tease us that hey, add me, and then eventually goes down. But yeah, at some point, I'm pretty confident that we'll have a Rocco game or couple of games, especially uh, when they realize that they kind of like need his presence. Maybe is he 100% healthy? I'm not sure.
It's hard to say. He's barely played. It's really hard to say. But based on his playing time, perhaps he's not healthy because you would think that be using him a lot more. Provides great defense, as we know, and he has that fantasy stat set. We've seen him in the top 50 in many, many seasons. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think he could provide some value later in the season. Definitely not a pickup right now, but something to pay attention to.
There you go. And then before the end of the slide for this specific episode, let's end it with a positive news. Miles Turner. I remember several of my drafts wherein people, unfortunately for me, because I usually picking last. So it seems like Turner slides every time for some reason, maybe for the trade rumors, and then he's coming off the injury as well. So with the previous last week, he already reminded us what he can do, them blocks, those points, those out of position snipes. So similar question to earlier, bro. How do you value Miles Turner?
I value him really highly, and again, I regret not trading for him. I had the opportunity to take him for my Terry Rozier. So Rozier is definitely a buy low, but Miles Turner's looked remarkable. We know per game basis he's easily a top 3 rounds, top 30 guy. At the moment, he's ranked 14th in 9 cat, just because he's been able to put on a show with his blocking prowess as well. So I rate him extremely highly. And if he does get traded, I don't think he does come back in value a great deal. I still think he will easily be inside the top 50 if he was to go to somewhere like the Lakers, where he would like himself to be next to AD. But yeah, next to AD, you'd have those twin towers, but his blocks would reduce. But I still think he's definitely a top 50 guy. If he's remaining at Indiana, which I think is a viable option now that they've got the structure around Hallie and himself, not to mention Mathurin as well. Buddy Hills look really good. Indy have looked really impressive this season, and it doesn't look like they're tanking, not right now. So I could see him staying with the team, and if that's the case, he's definitely a top 30 guy.
Yeah, and then I would suggest that players like this, wherein there's a lot of clouds behind those players, I would suggest to, shoot your trades the moment there's more gray clouds, because the because that's the value. That's the time wherein nobody knows the value is. Like for example, hey, there's trade rumors rumble, you kind of like hit that mark and then offer something for Miles Turner, or rather offer Miles Turner for someone else. Because the moment there's a clear direction, then we can see more clear path to what the players will get after a trade, right? So to balance it out, to kind of like use your selling skills, I would rather get players like Turner the moment there's some really gray clouds, and then do a smoke screen. Okay, so before we end, there's a lot of questions and comments. Let's give a couple of minutes, Dimak. It's kind of
Yeah, let's
late.
get to it.
Let's have a
Yeah.
quick recap of these comments. Let's do an alternate answer. You go first. So let me read it from Aldana Erwin Paps. Thoughts about this trade: Bronson and Zubac for Towns. What? Lalakas pa
Yeah.
ba laro ni Towns 9-cat? I have Embiid on my team and lots of guards. Whoa.
Yeah, great trade. Great trade. I know Towns has been a little bit down this season, still trying to find his way next to Gobert, but he's by far the better player of those three. So great trade. Brunson's been really impressive this season, but Towns has the higher upside. And once he finds his feet next to Gobert and Ant as well, and the rest of the Timberwolves, I think he'll definitely be in the top 20 come season end.
Yeah, I hope they kind of like find a way to really bounce back, because Mini has been really struggling. From Kent, Papi Kent, who can I get for Nance, Beasley, Plumlee, and Dinwiddie? Looking for a more steady player. I mean, 18 team, 15 cat. What? 15 cat head-to-head league. So first and foremost, it's hard for us to answer given that we don't know those categories. Another thing is it's hard to really rate this. But given that this is deep league, generally, I would like to take this opportunity to explain how do I value or how do I assess trades. Generally, you think of a reason why you do the trade. Are you trying to improve a category? Are you trying to improve a position? So there should always be a purpose. Is it about the opportunity where, hey, this is a good sell high, this is a good buy low? If that's the reason, then go for it. But if you're trying to trade just because or for the sake of trading, um, I I'm not encouraging that. If you're having fun with that, do that. So I'm fine with it. But generally, I don't encourage that, just because it might end up really, if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a strategy specifically for your team, if you don't know your team first and foremost, then it might end up really breaking your team instead of helping it. So it's hard for me to really assess this. But Beasley is a good sell high. Plumlee is a good sell high. Dinwiddie, mm, good sell. But again, it's 18 team, so I guess the points will be beneficial for you. The snipes of Beasley will be beneficial for you. I'm gonna stick with Nance. Next question. I think this has been answered earlier, Papa Isaiah. If you've watched this, thoughts about Jalen Duren. Let's move for another question. Second five, Malik Beasley, Javon Carter, Larry Nance, Horford. So this dude is just telling us his team. So good for you to have that. Maybe you flip Pat Connaughton. He's finally healthy. Expecting him to get more value, but unfortunately, as of the moment, Nuora and even what do you call it, Buchamp is getting
Beauchamp,
more
yeah.
minutes. Yeah, ahead of them. But once he gets healthy, maybe he gets some minutes. Thanks so much, Fantasy Basketball, for NBA Fantasy Bible for the inputs. For sure, for sure.
Okay.
Um, okay, the 16 team league. I guess we kind of like answered that. Let's find more questions for Papi Dimac here. Who's better this year, Jokic or Embiid?
Still give me Jokic. I think he's been quiet this season compared to previous seasons, but we know his ceiling. So give me Jokic over Embiid.
There you go. There you go. I'm going with Jokic as well. If you think someone sells Jokic right now, go buy some Jokic. Papi Aldan Erwin, nakakamiss nga. Kamukha na ni Papi Roy si Thor. Oh, if only I also have Thor's body, but unfortunately I have Thor's body when he was depressed. But thank you for telling me telling me that. Papi Janes the video. Good evening, Paps. Thoughts on Cade? I have him on Harden and him in Harden kasi. You go, bro. What will you do if you have Cade Cunningham?
That's hard. Pray perhaps for him to return. Um, I don't know if you can convince anyone to give you a top 50, top 60 player. You've got to take it because we just don't know what the status of him long term is for this season anyway. If you're in a dynasty league, obviously you hold on, but for season long, it's a tough one. I don't know if you can move him, but if for some reason you can convince someone, like I said, you make that move because even when he returns, Detroit, who are not a contending team, will probably look to play him sporadically at best. So if you can look to trade him for a guy in the top 60, which is, I know, long shot, but you just never know. If you can convince someone, you've got to do that.
Okay, here's an interesting trade. PG 13 and Laurie Markkanen for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Um, Ideally, I'm thinking that well, this is almost similar to what Dimac mentioned earlier about really valuing Giannis. Because if you drafted Giannis, I'm pretty sure you kind of like uh you kind of like mold your team on a punt free throw uh, team, right? So it's going to be hard to get an efficiency from free throws from PG 13 and Laurie Markkinen to to have Giannis. Though it's an interesting trade for me. Unfortunately, I'll still would love to get Giannis in this specific trade. Papi Kent, I think, and this is related to early question. Shout out Papi AJ on what's up? John Contreras idol is Josh Hart, elite guards and rebounder by Papi.
Yeah.
Mark Kevin, Hali for step keeper league. What can you advise Papi Dima?
Keeper league. Interesting. I have Hallie in a keeper league myself. I rate him really highly, and I think he's such a young player. I prefer him in that dynasty setting over Steph. And we know that Steph's dominating this season, but in your mind, you need just to make up your mind whether or not you want to win now, contend now, or still contend this season with Hallie, but because he's still a first rounder. But then in the longevity as well, he's going to have a tremendous career for many years to come. Probably a good 10 years easily. Steph maybe only what 2-3 years left potentially. So you just need to work out if you want to contend now or dominate now. It's really up to you. It depends on the rest of your team as well. If you're in a contending team, then you stick with Steph. If you're in a team that's heading towards lottery, then you go for Hallie, and perhaps you maybe even tank for Wemby, just like everyone
There you
else.
go. On behalf of Zach Hanshu, our good brother Zach Hanshu, I'm going to suggest Halliburton. Because we all know how Zach Hanshu loves Halliburton. But yeah, I love that answer. Um, from Papi Christian C, CJ McCollum or Rudy Gobert. For me, Rudy Gobert. But then again, you have to check what what categories do you want in your team? Because Rudy Gobert is a punt free throw player. So if you're not punting free throw and you think that your team will will we won't benefit with his field goal percentage, blocks and rebounds, then maybe CJ Mack, but generally Rudy Gobert. I'm hoping for Minnesota Timberwolves to finally figure it out. Unfortunately, personally, I think they would be better if they will kind of like limit playing Rudy Gobert and Carl Anthony Towns together. But well, I'm not their coach, so that's just my thought. Papi Brian Mary, thoughts on Poole? Drop in 12 team? Would you drop him, bro?
I wouldn't drop him, but he's not playing well. It's a tough one. He's got he's got the name recognition, so perhaps you could get him traded away in a package deal for that name recognition. But he's definitely not a 12-team mainstay at this stage. But I can't drop him if I owned him, which I don't anywhere, because I knew that he would have a bit of a drop off this season. But if you do have him anywhere, I'd be looking to package it up and try to trade him away, particularly after a game that Clay sits or potentially even Steph sits down the track. And I think they've got a back-to-back coming up in the next couple of weeks. So bear that in mind as well, because we know that Poole goes off whenever Clay and or Steph sits. So you'll need to work fast, and hopefully someone doesn't see through it as well.
There you go. Yeah, sadly for Poole, after getting the bag, he's now not contributing at any means, unfortunately. But he'll definitely get some decent games. Let's just clear the. I know you missed us, so we'll try to finish all of these comments. At least 5 more. Papi Pretronardo, shout out. Good job on giving us perspective. Malaking tulong. Yeah, of course. We're Dimac and I is here to always try to help you out with our perspective. I hope we are kind of like really helping you out. Papi Kenji C, are Jalen Williams assist for real or just a fluke? I guess we've already talked about that earlier. Let's move on with Erwin Linga.
And just on that previous question, just be careful of the spelling of Jalen Williams.
Yeah,
as well, that's the power forward with a Y.
Yeah, but I'm giving you a hot take. Before the season ends, Jalen Williams will be picked for sure. I super trust that OKC will tank hard later to the point that we'll be running and adding that Jalen Williams. Papi Erwin Linga. I was holding 3 OKC players but gave up because of the crazy rotation. Agree. Papi Mark Javeliana Poku. Yes. Trust in Poku, like AJ Ong mentioned. Norman Powell, let's go. He's on a rough start. I kind of like tweeted or posted something saying that I think after Kawhi and PG-13, I think Norman Powell should be, not necessarily is, should be the best option, but unfortunately, it's not happening yet. For you, bro, if you have AD, is Tom Bryant an ad? Like a handcuff, I guess?
Not necessarily. He's looked okay since he's come back from injury, but before injury, he's looked really poor. He did look really poor. Still unclear as to how Lakers are going to play that one out, but I wouldn't necessarily pick him up.
Okay. Wiggins for Banchero. I'm sticking with Banchero. Thinking. Yeah. The thing about Banchero is maybe the efficiency would be a concern, but upside wise, I might really stick with Banchero here. I'm interested on how he'll finish this season. Wiggins is a good option, but yeah, I'm sticking with the upside of Banchero. LeBron for KD and Kyrie. LeBron for KD and Kyrie. I think this is pretty obvious. Should be KD and Kyrie side. Last question for Papi Dima. Christian Wood, your insights.
Yeah, he's a punt free throw guy. I know you've got him in the deep league, Papi. He's been hot and cold this season. He started off like a steam train, 6th Man of the Year award candidate. He slowed down significantly 16 team 9K. Yeah, you've got to roster him in 16 teams. I think he's a must roster in 12 teams as well. But yeah, bear in mind that he is a free throw guy.
Yeah, and then we've mentioned this few weeks back. It's Luka Doncic team. I think everyone is a role player, to be honest. And sometimes Christian Wood explodes. Sometimes Spencer Dinwiddie, but sometimes it's Tim Hardaway Jr. So unless stuck on the wood, Luka Doncic sits more games and get tired of that James Harden role, then that's the time we kind of like pump our Christian Woods and Spencer Dinwiddie's value. Okay, so it was a long episode for today. I know you kind of like miss us, so we opt to really do an overtime at least for today. But moving forward next week, we're gonna have our usual 1 hour show. And then thank you so much again for our very good friend and a very active. If you can follow him on Twitter, please do so. NBA Fantasy Bible, please. I would really encourage you guys to follow our good friend here because he's been giving us a lot of information and a lot of solid takes. So, bro, have you kind of like are you done with your YouTube and Facebook or other mediums?
Haven't kicked that off yet. Been busy, been a little bit sick. Been focused on our show together, of course. So looking to expand on my socials as well, particularly with Twitter potentially being shut down by Elon. Thanks to Elon, thank you very much. So yeah, it's something that's on my horizon. So watch this space, guys.
There you go. There you go. So that's it, everyone. Again, I'll try to keep my promises this time. This week, I'll definitely gonna go back to our roots, doing our kind of like at least twice episode per week podcast, and then that's on top of our usual weekly podcast English edition with DMAC here. And then again, follow NBA Fantasy Bible at Twitter. Hopefully, once Dimac is healthier, will also share his YouTube and Facebook account for more content for fantasy basketball. From my end, you already know this Fantasy Basketball Pinas at Facebook. If you haven't really joined our NPA Fantasy League PH group, join that group because there's a lot of Filipino gems that is very knowledgeable and has solid comments whenever you have any thoughts or you have any questions anytime. YouTube and Spotify, Fantasy Basketball PH, Twitter handle NBA Fantasy Papi, and then Kumu Papi Roy. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. See you again next week. Thank you so much, Dimac. Bye.
Thanks, Roy. Bye, everyone.